This arc is quickly becoming one of the greatest in all of Black Clover. Ever since it started in chapter 354, things have been ramping up more and more to the point where after I read one chapter, I think things couldn't possibly get any crazier in the next. And then it does. From Jack being essentially one-shotted to Noel forming a contract with a literal god, Tabata is making sure this arc is living up to all the hype he set up for it. And when I opened up chapter 361 and saw that Yuno had taken what I thought was just a light slash across the chest at the end of the last chapter and turned it into him slicing Lucius in half in this one, I thought to myself, okay, this is it. This is the peak moment for this arc. Yuno finally got his protagonist moment and defeated the main villain instead of Asta. This is where we're going to slow things down and take a second to breathe before revealing some big twist that's going to lead us into the second half of the saga. And then I saw the next page. And when I saw Lucius just sitting there right behind Yuno, I got literal chills. And just like Yuno, my mind started going a million miles a minute trying to figure out exactly what was going on. Was that an illusion? Was that a time variant? Did Lucius have a paladin with transformation magic pretend to be him? And then, when we got the answer, I felt like an idiot. You see, Lucius had used the magic of his siblings combined with his soul magic to create a perfect clone of himself. And that clone is the one who had been fighting Yuno this entire time. It had honestly slipped my mind that we found out Lucius had his siblings in those pod-like things in chapter 344, and I guess now we know that those pods weren't healing his siblings so they could return, but instead giving him access to their magic. Which is actually a great reveal for me because I was against the idea of those three coming back to begin with. I mean, maybe bring back Xenon and have him rebel against Lucius if you wanted to go that route, but having the Dark Triad come back as villains, again, really to me would feel kind of redundant. Also, if you go back to chapter 344, we see that the pods holding the Dark Triad are connected to the throne Lucius is sitting on. And when we see who we assume is the real Lucius in this chapter, he's sitting in the exact same throne, which could mean that Lucius is only able to access his siblings' magic when he's sitting down in that throne. And this brings up some serious questions, or I guess really just one question. Why can't Lucius just steal their magic like he did with Lucifer and all the other devils he purified? It could be that the soul magic's ability only works on devils and that he can't steal the magic of humans the same way, but he can have access to their magic if he places them inside these pods. I would also guess that the humans have to be alive for this to work, which is why he's seemingly keeping them in a state between life and death, although it could very well be that the three of them are actually dead, and at this point he's just preserving their bodies. Whether it's the former or the latter, either way, we now know one more limitation of his soul magic, and I actually dig the way Tabata is slowly chipping away at the overpowered paint that we all thought time and soul magic had, revealing the subtle cracks and weaknesses each one has through context clues. But even with all that said, we still find ourselves in a really sticky situation, because it took Yuno all he had to take down just one Lucius. And now he has at least 12 more to deal with, and even if he somehow manages to get past these clones, there's nothing to say that they were as strong as Lucius is at his max power. Which means the real Lucius could be 10, 20, 100 times more powerful than the clone that Yuno just defeated. Oh, and not to mention, Lucius is currently just chilling in space right now, watching everything go down, just waiting for his time to descend upon the world. So, not only will Yuno have to take on 12 more clones when it took pretty much all of his power to take down just one, but he'll also, after he defeats them, if he even manages to do that, somehow find a way to make his way into space, just to challenge Lucius. Oh, not to mention all the countless clones Lucius created to face off against Noel, the Magic Knights, and all the other captains. And you know what, it's actually kind of funny, when I got done reading this chapter for the first time, I saw on Twitter a lot of fans tweeting out that this series is either ending this year or is ending in the next 3 years. They have no idea how long it's going to be going for, and I couldn't help but laugh because I completely understand where they're coming from. With the way Tabata is writing and pacing the Judgment Day arc, it could either all wrap up in the next 25 chapters, or it could go on for another 150 plus. We just don't know. Because even with everything that's currently going on right now, there's still so many things that are still left unanswered, and we don't even know if we're going to be getting into any of them. Like what's going on with Adramelic? Is he actually the real villain of the saga, pulling the strings behind Lucius this entire time? And if he is, then what's his endgame? And not to mention, there are characters that we are almost certain are paladins that have yet to show up. There's still plenty of fights that need to start and finish, and a certain family reunion that we know is going to happen. And actually, now that I think about it, there's 2 family reunions, because there's no way Tabata brought back Morgan and doesn't plan on letting him and Nacht come face to face. At some point before the saga's over, that meeting, that reunion is going to happen. Oh, and speaking of Nacht, we actually get to see him again in this chapter, because everything we talked about so far happened in just the first 9 pages of the chapter, and the second half takes us to the Black Bulls for the first time since chapter 337, where they're working on finding a way to bring Asta back to the Clover Kingdom, seeking help from the one and only Witch Queen. But I have a lot to say about that, and I'm short on time, so we'll save all that for another video.